What's up, guys? Welcome to the Lioneye Watch. Join us around the fire for a discussion about the new map mod changes, new unique items, and of course, build of the week. With me, I have my two co-hosts, Hedgie and PT. Well, Hedgie is sick today. He won't be saying that much, but it'll be fine. What have you been up to, PT?
Well, I've been just recently making fun of Hedgie for those who weren't there for the pre-podcast discussion. Better podcast, he can't talk. Win-win for everybody.
Other we appreciate that.
Yeah, fuck you guys. I'm still here. I'm going to talk as possible.
In spirit. You're here in spirit. From there, I just finally got Detonate Dead crit going in Breaches. What have you been doing in Breaches, Hedgie?
Actually, before we continue on that, let's just quickly introduce the straw poll here, and then Hedgie can tell us about it. Guys, down here by the corner, we have a straw poll. How many challenges do you plan on completing for Breach League? And Hedgie or PT, could you post it in chat, and then people can start voting, and then we can, just talk over this.
Head.
Excellent. And I may have to update this because it's always not reacting to it whenever it shows on stream. But
just have to refresh it or something, yeah.
Yeah. Hedgie, what have you been doing?
So I recently had all my family go back to their homes, their original states, and I've been catching up, been playing a lot. I'm level 88, and things are coming along nicely. Got about 2 exalts. I'm saving up for an era. A lot of people they come in my stream, they see my stash, and they're like, why don't you go buy an era right now? It's like, well, it's not that simple. You have to get all the components to make an era build good. You can't just put on an era and call it a day. You need accuracy. You need to get sockets and links, and you just have to have the resist to cover all the suffixes that you're going to get with like crit and crit multi. So I'm just getting to that point, and around like 75% of my Atlas progression, but I'm about to transition into Uber Lab farming because that's where I like to make money, and I want to iron out all my enchants before I transition. But everything is looking good. It's on schedule, and I'm having a lot of fun in the Breach League. I love the Breach. It's one of my favorites, actually. I didn't think I would say that.
You've been doing a ton of lab farming, haven't you, lifting?
Yeah, I've been doing pretty much only lab farming so far. I've been leveling, of course, and then just Uber lab farming. And I have spent, I don't know how many runs I have, but I have accumulated what's equivalent to, I guess, 25 Exalted Orbs worth in currency over, I guess, 4-5 days of Uber lab farming. It's been very profitable, but that's the thing when you get to Uber lab farming in the beginning of a league, and you are the first people to bring the quality gems to the market and some of the divination cards, and you can control the price, then it's just insanely profitable. And I'm already seeing that now that we are a little more than a week into the league, the prices are starting to drop. It's not as profitable as it were in the beginning, but it's still very profitable, and it will remain profitable for the remainder of the week. But there's this shift where you go from having a very easy time just selling everything that drops in the Uber Lab to where it pretty much just becomes enchants and really high quality gems and good divination cards. And of course, there's also the thing about where it's super cheap in the beginning to get the offerings to Uber Lab. Like, I think I paid 2 chaos for most of my offerings, and it seems like the prices now increased like 3 or 4, and I believe I always notice that it goes up to like 4 or 5, and then it stabilizes around that. But go ahead. Sorry.
The trick is you gotta act like a squirrel. You gotta find like the shittiest day, like the shittiest lab layout day, and then stock up on all the enchants when the lab is good, when it's like really easy. That's when they just shoot up. Like I looked the other day, it was like 4 and 5 chaos. I was like, man, that's ridiculous.
Yeah. I think there's a misconception out there in the community, at least from what I've seen from my Twitch chat. People are always saying you have to do 4 key runs for it to be profitable. I don't find that to be true at all. If you can even just do 2 key runs in the beginning. If you can get offerings for 2 chaos, then just 2 key runs is going to be insanely profitable if you're at least one of the early people to go there. It may not be later on in the league, but yeah, I definitely I enjoy it. I think it's fun. A lot of people always ask, "Why the fuck are you doing lab? Don't you want to kill yourself?" And the answer to that is no. I actually quite enjoy it because the reward near the end is just so much fun. And I guess while traps can be annoying and all that stuff, I actually feel it's more engaging than just running mid-tier or low-tier maps for the most part, where you can just mindlessly farm them with your eyes closed almost. So,
dude, I'm right there with you.
Yeah,
I feel the exact same way. I like meaningful actions and meaningful movements, whereas you're not just thinking about, okay, I'm gonna whirling blades in a straight line or shield charge in a straight line. And that's one of the reasons why I really enjoy lab. It requires you to think. Yeah.
I don't know what you guys are talking about. When I do lab, I just go in a straight line to the end, and I just eat every single trap that hits me. I've died twice in lab, in normal lab to desync. Every other time, I just run in a straight line, and I haven't died yet.
Oh, I've died lots of times in lab. You get that panic feeling when you're getting hit by a trap, you're going down low, and you just get hit by another trap, you're panicking even more, you're starting to run around, you run back, you get hit by the same trap, and then you fucking die because you're out of potions. Never run
going
backwards.
Forward. Most traps aren't even fast enough to catch up with you.
Yeah, the literally the best strategy is to just go forward. Keep sprinting, and then just hope you don't get hit by anything. Don't go backward.
Actually, going from there, we have a nice segue into something else that we're going to be doing, which is a lab run of the week. Now, Norse TV on Twitch, we stole a clip from him. We asked him. Within the first few days, he went to the Uber lab farming. He went pretty hard, and we have a 6-minute timed run with him. It is in the Breach softcore. So from this, if someone wants to send us a video beating the 6-minute mark, we'll have a little bit of a friendly competition to see how quickly we can get a lab run by the end of the league. So
we're showing the gameplay here in the corner. That's Norse doing it now. I think that 6-minute run, right?
Yeah, and it's just showcasing how powerful and how quickly you can get through the Uber lab. Even it's not nearly the fastest, but it's still extremely safe.
And he's not even just trying to run as fast as possible. He is taking some of the buffs on his arrow for more keys.
Yeah,
so
he's doing a 4 key in 6 minutes, so it's quite reasonable.
It's very, very good.
It's always impressive to see how well people can move through the lab when they're trying, versus when you're doing it for that single time you need it on your character, and you're just like, no, don't kill me.
Lab is also very much a thing about being focused. Because when I'm streaming, it can take me 20 minutes to get through the lab or something like that. But if I'm playing alone and just trying to focus on it, you can easily cut that in half, right? It's really you need to focus up. But yeah.
Well, how long do your lab runs go on your totem character currently?
I haven't really tried to do it as fast as possible. I guess
just your casual ones.
12 minutes, I'd say.
Okay.
Good runs, maybe 10. It depends. It can probably be done at 8 if I were to try doing it fast.
Do you have any interest in racing it?
Do I have what?
Any interest in racing?
Yes, I do. I definitely do want to try racing it, but I don't want to do it with a character such as that. I want to dedicate a character for that because I think going Pathfinder with Quicksilver Flasks is a good approach for something like that. And the Flame Totem character is just too slow for that. The intention with that character was simply to have a cheap lab farmer in the beginning and then transition from there. And now I want to try making a perma-stun round slammer or heavy strike for Isaro to see if that can be done. Make it easy in there.
If you manage to stun him, I'm going to be curious, but
I'm pretty.
My hopes up.
I saw someone doing it with. I can't remember what the skill was, but he was stunning him pretty effectively. So it should be possible. But if it's going to be reliable, that's the thing, right?
Yeah, I mean, part of getting a really good lap time is having insane single target DPS, and probably going to want to scale poison and things like that, or really push it over, especially with all the gargoyles and phase 1, phase 2 mechanics.
It actually made me consider doing something like Vigilant Strike, but then I saw that Vigilant Strike, like compared to Heavy Strike, the damage is only slightly better. And you don't have to deal with the endurance charges, even though you could, for a stun build, go endurance charge on melee stun, but then you have the issue of, you lose a link. And I would love to see Vigilant Strike being used a bit more. The only time I use it is literally when I'm racing with Brutus, and I get to Brutus. I guess it's pretty decent for that.
Yeah, and the other time I used it was like on a trapper using with a staff like Sire Shards just to get fortify. If I was about to pop a bunch of porcupines or something like that, I would just do like a drive-by Vigilant Strike just so I could survive.
I think the most interesting thing about that skill is actually that the quality on the skill is increased fortify duration.
Yeah. Like, what?
Why the fuck would you need that when you use that to attack all the time? But yeah.
They spelt effect wrong, maybe. I don't know.
Maybe.
It would have made sense to get fortify effectiveness. Yeah. But
it would make it much more interesting to use too.
There would at least be more of a reason to try to play with the janky lockstep skill.
Yeah.
So like from there, we just wanted to show that video so that players could see, what you can do in terms of fast lab farming, even with one that's particularly safe. Keep in mind, though, Norse is pretty good at acquiring gear, though it's early, he's already got a disfavor. So from there, we want to talk about the new map modifications, and we'll be jumping right into that. So Hedgie, you have been doing a few maps. You haven't gone too far because of being busy with family. Which map mod has you kind of run into and been more interested in so far?
Well, one of them that I ran into that I just noticed was the Rust, or of Rust, one of the suffixes. 20% reduced block chance and 30% less armor, but I'm starting to run red maps and I can get 50% less armor. That's insane for something that's already so unpopular. Like getting punished even more. It's like usually your armor builds are not going to have high effective health to deal with all the spells and spell damage, chaos damage, and that's like one of the big downsides. And then to further reduce your primary defense, it's like, wow, like way to get shit on. And I felt like the nerfs to roomies and other things, that's a bit more in line. But man, this one really, really hurts. It really makes me feel naked in some maps when that's like my primary defense, life and armor and life regen.
Yeah,
I was kind of. Oh, sorry, Lifton, go ahead.
I was curious how much you actually felt it, but you definitely do feel a practical difference.
Yeah. Well, I died. I mean, I died in
that's a good indicator.
It was an underground river. It was monster damage and then 40% reduced armor. But I'm used to those drop bears only doing a certain amount of damage. And man, I was just chugging pots left and right, and like it wasn't until the third one they started stun locking me, and I just died. I was like, "Holy shit!" And it wasn't until I realized what map mods were on it. I was like, "Oh my god, that reduces my armor by that much." I was like, "Jesus, no wonder I was getting shit on."
Well, the one thing that was kind of more surprising me too with the Rust modification was not the armor reduction, but the combination of armor reduction and block reduction. Most of the block nodes in the passive tree are in kind of the bottom the bottom left side. It quite often does go together. And putting both of them together on the same modification was like you in particular, fuck you.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of people who find some of these changes a little weird when you look at what the current meta is, when Energy Shield already seems to be very, very powerful. And it seems like it's actually the other mitigation forms that gets penalized the most.
Yeah, and let's talk about another one of those. Monsters. Oh, I guess this is another map mod where I like 50% of it, but not the other half. Monsters cannot be slowed below base speed, and monsters cannot be taunted. I really like the monsters can't be taunted because decoy totem was such a strong staple and is so cheap for a single link. Um, they recently added a cooldown to decoy, so you don't get that 10% damage reduction anymore, and it won't taunt the mob while this map mod exists. That is a pretty good change and a good downside. However, the monsters cannot be slowed below base speed. That just shits on stuff that's like not popular already, like cold casters, anything that's offensively cold. And I think they're already struggling already. So, why punish them even further? It's a little awkward.
Was there a map mod that did the same to characters, where your character can't be slowed below 0%? Or is that just something I'm imagining?
Well, there's another map mod. Monsters are immune to elemental status ailments. That pretty much makes chill and freeze off the table, and that's your defense.
Yeah, for cold, for sure.
Yeah, yeah, you really rely on that shit just to be able to hang. I mean, you don't do as much damage as fire and lightning and things like that, but you just kind of get shit on with that map mod. Really shit on.
I don't mind the monsters cannot be taunted, or if there was like a secondary effect to it in general, because I don't think you can really build a taunt build. You can utilize it efficiently and effectively, but you can't really make that the corner piece of it. But the slowed below base speed, it's just like, yeah, that's, what we really need? Another fuck you to cold. That's what this game really needs. Do you want to play cold? Yes. Just in case you thought about it, here's another one.
Yeah, I kind of wish. Go ahead.
No, I obviously cold builds can do a lot of good stuff in Path of Exile. You can make very powerful cold builds. It's just that there's so many downsides to going cold that you will be more inclined, if you want to perform well, to go other elements or fist damage.
Convert your cold to fire.
Yeah, something like that. It's not lucrative or attractive to go cold, unless it's just for your own personal whatever reason.
Yeah, you can see with grinding gear games, they're trying to address some of the balance issues and throw in some things that give some hardships to powerhouse builds. We see that kind of with what's that one that conflagrating all monster damage from hits always ignites, and that kind of shits on ES builds that rely on energy shield recharge, which is a very powerful tool. But now they have to dance a little bit longer, and they have to be a bit more evasive just to get it, because any hit is going to put that 4-second ignite. And ES being powerful as it is, I mean, it's not going to really affect the leech characters because they're just going to leech to full as soon as they hit something.
Well, even then, an energy shield based character, Sierra low life, it gets like +1 or +2 flasks depending on the amount of life flasks you run. So one of those just has the remove fire, or if you're Pathfinder, all your flasks can remove it anyways.
Yeah,
I think it kind of punishes life again, because life doesn't have the flexibility of flasks that CI has. So yeah, I would say it punishes life much more than it punishes chaos inoculation.
Really?
Yeah,
I think I mean, yeah, in the sense of if you're a Pathfinder, but Pathfinders are always going to be the attack or self-cast type builds. They're not going to be the totem builds, like totem or minion or summoner. Those people rely on energy shield recharge.
Yeah, but you could just get, what I'm saying is, you could quite easily run the remove ignite because you have bonus flasks compared to life. So yeah, you're losing a suffix roll that's not idealized, but that's not a huge inconvenience for a CI build, is it?
Well, I don't know. There's so many powerful flasks, nowadays.
But if regen's valuable, you get the flask for that map mod.
I mean,
that's it.
It's possible that you just hot swap a flask for this type of map mod, because I don't really find the remove ignite as a worthy suffix on the majority of maps. But if I'm gonna run this map, it's probably like the equivalent of swapping into a mana flask on a low regen map or something. But
Yeah,
another
I see it
thing,
the same way.
Yeah, another thing that this can combo with is comboing with vulnerability maps. This could be pretty damn devastating. Like, imagine getting hit by a Bone Roa or a Colossal Bone Skelly, and then you take a Diesel hit, and all of a sudden you have an Ignite. And, most life-based characters that aren't Pathfinders, that aren't, immune to Ignite, like Chieftain and stuff, they're going to take a Diesel-ass degen, and they're not going to have any way to remove it.
Gotta say though, I kind of like that. I think that is
Yeah.
pretty cool. Ignites has been something you really didn't care about monsters typically having in maps. Now all of a sudden, it is you will be more inclined to run that Dowsing Flask.
Hey, you can run Maku's Embrace or Moku's Embrace, the ring that gives you cast attack speed damage when you're ignited, and roll all your maps for this. Every single map, like, yeah, my build's efficient. I finally can do it.
Some of these are pretty interesting, and I kind of wish that they did the same. They gave map mods the same treatment that they did with Zana mods, where they're like seasonal. They cycle in, cycle out. It's a mix of different things, and it kind of like shapes the meta. And I know you can roll past a lot of shit, but eventually you're gonna get to the point where you want to alch maps, and you're only gonna want to spend so much currency. So you're gonna get down to the point where you're like, oh, I'll just deal with it, or I'll just run it because I'm sick of re-rolling this map, and I want to get good rewards. So they can use map mods to push you into a certain meta, but on the same note, it needs to be fair. We don't need to be punishing already unpopular builds, and maybe if those become really strong and powerful, then they can introduce map mods later or take map mods out. So I kind of hope that they're flexible with some of these, and we've seen them modify previous ones, which is very good. They're addressing some of the shitty ones.
Well, the one that I was kind of interested, or I found odd, was the hex warding, and it's from lowest tier to highest tier. It's 25% less curse effectiveness than 50 than 75. This is kind of what most people wanted hexproof, because nobody has really an issue with the hexproof or like mobs being more resistant to curses. But why do we still have hexproof when we have this? Once you hit the 75% less, like your curses outside of functionality of charge generation and small, they're pretty much fucking done. If you're investing 3, 4, 5 curses, you got raped by this modification. So why the fuck do we still have hexproof?
Yeah.
Well, there's Cospreys. I mean,
just for Cospreys.
I personally, I like the way the curses are designed. When they work, they're insanely strong. And this is just one, another one where it's gonna throw you a curveball. And I think that they can afford, a little pain. And it's
well, I like this mod. I just don't. This mod existing with hexproof just seems a little bit silly to me.
Yeah, you would think they were trying to solve a problem by adding this to it, but then they keep that problem in the game along with this. But
so would you rather, okay, if you had a choice, if they gave you the option, would you rather nerf curses and do away with hexproof, or would you rather have curses in its current state and have immunity, occasional immunity?
Well, I would. So are we ignoring like the hex warding role, because that's what I was bringing up?
Oh yeah, okay, let's throw that in there too.
Like I would in general think curses should be nerfed. They're a little bit silly, especially the temp chains fucker. So I would prefer mobs being more resistant to curses and having curses a little bit weaker, because the problem with immunity is like the same thing with the problems with any immunity. If you build to do something, you're not challenged by your immunity. You're just like, oh, okay. Whereas curse resistance, like the 75% less curse, you still get its base functionality, but you're heavily punished more along the lines of the armor roll. How would you feel if of Rust, instead of doing the reduced armor and reduced block, says, you cannot block, you have 0 armor. you'd be like, well, fuck.
Well, I mean, that would keep me on my toes. I think it would make the combat a bit more exciting and make me pay more attention. And I like that. I like spiky play where I don't want everything just to be like averaged out where it just like always works or, it's so consistent. I want some sketchy moments, and that's what I feel like the Breach does really well. Is it's not exhausting like Beyond was, where you had insane high HP, high resist regen monsters, and they're always a presence. These are like calculated, premeditated, openings of just a clusterfuck of shit, and I love that part.
Well, you can still do huge penalties, like 75% curse resist, 80%, 90%. Like, it's the difference between a huge penalty and an absolute immunity.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's kind of the...
My overall opinion of curses is, as a design, I like how they're super powerful, but they don't work all the time. And I don't want them to nerf curses, water them down in exchange of removing the immunity. I kind of like that role because I feel auras do that really well. Their auras are a presence,
Well, they made curses auras now with blasphemy.
Well, yeah, that's a whole nother thing. But let's go on to one of the next map mods. Reduced AOE, definitely a small change to, I guess, alleviate some of the
effect, by the way.
Yeah, less area of effect. It's a multiplier. Goes from 15, 20 to 25. And this seems like an attempt to slow down the clear speed meta, but it's still, when you have things like Dying Sun and Flask modifiers, you're still going to achieve really good AoE. It goes from like off screen to like on screen.
It's a pack size mod, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
Yeah. So that is pretty cool too. You're getting rewards with better density.
But I mean, you'll still note or feel the nerf. It is a pretty significant nerf to your area of effects.
I felt.
Of course, you can try to circumvent this, but that is at the cost of other stuff. Then, so I don't know. I think when I read about these map mods, it actually didn't make that big of an impression on me because I didn't really feel like it was going to change my game too much. It just meant that there was a few more maps I could roll for my Righteous Fire character and then get a bit of pack size. I think some of them, it's nice, it's freshening up the game, but it doesn't really make that much of a difference.
Well, I mean, it depends on what kind of character you made. Like this one of skirmishing as a suffix, it gives you point blank. I think that's a really cool map mod because it changes the way you would play like an archer. And
does it really?
Yeah, I mean, point blank, you do less damage from far away.
Yeah, but would you really? I mean, I don't think it would change anything, man.
I'm going with Lifton on this one. Like, I understand you could be at a distance and you can prefer to play at a distance, but in the state of the game, all builds must be able to tank melee damage due to how mobs interact. And sure, the difference might be rather than auto attack and then move, you move into the mob, then auto attack, and it's like, oh my god, the creativity and difference.
I mean, it's true there's a technical difference, but in practicality, I don't think it's going to make that much of, not for the majority of players. Maybe you're the exception, Hedgie.
I don't know.
I see it as like enfeeble, a damage nerf. Like, that's how I read it.
Yeah.
I just see it as.
But it's also a damage buff. I mean, you're getting better damage, more meaningful damage at point blank range. So it's like you might be playing a tornado shot raider or a ranger, and now all of a sudden you're playing a bit more up close and personal to get better damage output. And there is a point when you get to so much damage it doesn't even matter. But at the very beginning of a league, especially if you haven't played a lot, you're not going to have that critical mass DPS, and stuff like this will matter, especially when coupled with enfeeble or more monster life. There's no way in hell you're going to be perching with this map mod. It's like.
But ultimately, it does break down to a situation where Worst case scenario, it behaves like a secondary enfeeble or resist, or it's just generic damage reduction. And if you were taking advantage of it, chances are you were a point blank build anyways. So that's
I don't know.
why me and Lifting are like, it's not really changing anything, not
I
from a
don't really
practical standpoint.
I don't feel like it's just a generic damage reduction. Like a generic damage reduction would be resistance or enfeeble or more monster
Yeah,
life.
sure. It's
This
a more
is
interesting way of going
yeah,
about
this
it.
is a
Yeah,
damage buff too. Like it
sure.
changes the way you would shoot.
Sure,
And I
that's
think that
true. It's a different
yeah.
way of doing it, and probably more interesting than just giving the monsters
Yeah,
more
then
mitigation.
yeah, I think it's way more interesting than giving something enfeeble or more monster life. That's generic and uninteresting. But if you know how to utilize the point blank keystone and you know what it does, you can, clear it much faster than the person that doesn't know what the hell he's doing.
I think
But
the only time I would really take this into consideration was if I was doing Guardians or something like that, and I had rolled this. Then I would adapt my playstyle to it to make the most of it. But for the general content, you just end up having so much damage that it doesn't make too much of a difference anyway.
yeah, I mean that's a different problem. When we get so much damage that stuff doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Have you
But
noticed, or have you run any of the of drought, which is the 20% reduced flask charges, than like 25, 30? Because I ran a couple of them and I haven't noticed it really at all.
I haven't really noticed it. I mean, I clear so fast and
A little bit on bosses, I guess.
Yeah, this is where I could see this potentially being the most impactful too. It will make a difference on tough bosses where you would have to survive for longer and rely on ads spawning to refill your flasks. You would feel this against a Guardian, that's for sure.
yeah,
But
if you're playing like a COC Pathfinder, you're probably feeling it way more than others. Other people don't rely on flasks to sustain everything, their damage, their defense, and everything. A lot of people just use flasks to recover their primary resource.
yeah.
But another one that I thought was peculiar is impervious. Monsters have a 25% chance to avoid poison, blind, and bleed. Now, I can understand the poison, but the blind and bleed, these are two things that are really, really hard to get. And it's just like blind recently got some saboteur love, and then you got some other interactions with what's the other class that
Well,
has
keep in mind it's avoid, not like reduction of chance. So like Stibnite just destroys. I don't know. Saying blind didn't get love, and I'm like, Stibnite flask. What?
But things that have limited AOE or a hard enough time to apply or hard enough chance to apply, and then you nerf that. I was like, wow. I was kind of surprised when I saw blind and bleed, because those are two things that I didn't feel were very strong in our current meta. Poison, I can see definitely, but
Do we know what the percentage is at high tier maps?
yeah, it's 25, 45,
40,
65.
65. God damn it,
Okay.
at the same time.
Synchronous podcasting.
we both took a break to let the other one finish, and then
Yeah.
fucking fail.
Okay.
Bleed doesn't stack, so it is avoidance. Usually most people are applying a bleed for putting on a secondary effect.
Yeah.
So it's going to be a small quality of life decrease on your general clear, but it shouldn't affect your single target after a couple seconds. The blind, as far as I'm concerned, blind's retardedly powerful and can deal with it. And then poison ends with just being kind of a percent damage reduction, no more different than enfeeble or anything else. So I don't know. This seems like more or less a free mod to me.
I don't know. I think it's a really harsh on bleed, because if you're already relying on a not 100% chance to bleed, like let's say 75, and you're using a slow attack, having to redo that slow attack just to get the bleed, just so you can get the other benefits, whether it's like Gladiator, Earthquake, or something like that. That's pretty damn annoying.
But how many builds have rely on bleed And
Not
then,
many, so why punish them?
Yeah.
Well, you were fine with the hexproof curse immunity because of the power of curses, but apparently bleeds. No, that one's
But
can't
curses
be
are a bit
touched.
more universal, right? Anybody, like literally any class can use a curse and have it
Anyone can
benefit
use
their build.
blind.
Oh god.
I'm using your
my
statement. What am I doing wrong?
Okay, I think curses are a bit more universal than blind.
And point
Like,
blank,
in
you like that it make you
practicality.
play differently. This one makes you not play bleed builds.
Yes.
Yeah,
Socket your primary skills with blind. Go for it.
I really need to do that one day.
You Stib Knight, it's better.
Yes. Much
And it
better.
ignores this map mod. All right, so going from there, the build of the week, we actually ended up grabbing one from Pohx because he was playing Blight and everyone likes to shit on it. So we didn't get a whole bunch of submissions. So if you do in the future want to have your build highlighted, showcased, let us know. Send me a message. But we were going to go over a little bit of Pohx's. And he's been running around, done a bit of Breach Lords, couple, or just the one, I believe.
He's running around kind of three out of 5.
Okay, 3 down. And so we can take a little bit of look of Blight after the buff. Now, what I could say I remember playing it is at the early levels, like the level 1 Blight, it's still awful. Like, just absolutely awful.
I have yet to try it yet. I wasn't impressed by what I saw the last time. But how much was it of a buff it got?
It ended up being 30%, 30 or 35% more at level 20, and then there was also a bug where temp chains wasn't interacting with it, thus extending the debuff time, so that ended up being quite a lot. So it basically got 2 buffs in comparison.
But from what I've seen from Pohx's gameplay, he utilizes the Warcry to, what's it called? The one that makes them explode.
Abyssal Cry.
Abyssal Cry, yeah. And he seems to be dealing quite a lot of damage very reliably. He's playing it as an occultist witch and as CI, as you guys can see. And it's fairly standard setup. He also incorporates dream fragments, and I was trying to figure out, why do you guys think he's using dream fragments? Is it necessary for his mana? Is that why?
I don't know. Maybe he just really didn't want the flask with the freeze immune so that it didn't make mistakes.
It definitely
He
makes
has to play it.
definitely makes that safer, and he also uses Eye of Cheula to fix the stun issues. So I guess he just really wants to be safe permanently there, and then he's using the Witchfire Brew flask for an
So
addition.
great.
Yeah, that's a
Holy
really
shit, that
really
flask.
sick flask. The only issue with that flask, in my opinion, is if you really want to kill bosses, because then you are, of course, restricted by flask charges. But yeah,
The notable thing, if you're not familiar with the Blight builds, he's using the Zergle's Crank, which is perfect with the Occultist, which is going to allow you just tons and tons of energy shield recharge activation. He has Blight linked with Controlled Destruction, Rapid Decay, Void Manipulation, Increased Area of Effect, and Empower. Obviously, Increased Area of Effect can be switched to Conk Effect, and that's just kind of the general setup. And I think it's Zergle's Crank giving the +1, interacting so well with the Occultist's ability that once your energy shield recharge starts, it can't be interrupted. When you block, your energy shield recharge starts, so it's just a fantastic defensive combination. Too bad Rumi's was nerfed, but still fantastic.
yeah, absolute amazing item for that ascendancy by itself. But he has a forum guide to it. He has a YouTube guide. Go check it out. You guys know Pohx on YouTube. Search for Pohx Path of Exile, and if you type BoTW, Build of the Week, the link comes up as well. So if you're interested in trying out Blight, then this might be a way of going about it.
The only thing that I was kind of curious of your guys' thought on Blight is it just going to be a catalyst for Abyssal Cry, or are you really going to be happy with it without using Abyssal Cry? It has a decent single target burst.
I think the problem with...
Without it.
Sorry, come again?
I said I wouldn't want to use it without it. I think it's like they go hand in hand.
I think there is the issue with Blight though, where it actually is fairly powerful, but because of the way the damage is applied, it looks slow to you. So you can, from what I've seen from gameplay, you can apply Blight fairly fast, and the monsters will die over time, right? But because of the animation and the way it looks, it doesn't feel impactful, and you're standing around waiting for the monsters to die. When you use Abyssal Cry, they pop and they give you that feeling, but it doesn't seem to be necessary from the content I've seen.
I think one of the huge things is when you compare it, obviously, with the Essence Drain Contagion. Then you're going to make that comparison regardless. Essence Drain Contagion, you tag a mob, you put on the Contagion, and you have this set amount of damage that's going to be done. Wither, it's going to be so easy to accidentally cast too many Withers where the mob's technically already in a lethal range and they're just going to tick down. You're quite frequently going to be making tons and tons of player mistakes. You have to recalculate for every different variable amount of life, whereas the Essence Drain Contagion it'll always work. Just one to it and move on. Yeah. So that's probably kind of the really inconvenient aspect.
The thing with ED Contagion is it goes the extra mile. It goes behind walls and into other rooms, and like you like walk into a room full of loot and you're like, what happened? Oh, my ED Contagion just chain reacted and just cleared everything. It's so amazing where, you know, when you're dealing with a spray, like a conal spray, you're going to be obstructed by walls, you know, in the video you have bookcases and things like that.
I just remember when you're playing ED, you like chain a pack, you hear your loot filter, and you're like, okay, so which of the 7 rooms that I just cleared?
Yeah.
We're going on a quest.
You're like, I heard something good drop. I'm not sure where it is because it's so far off screen.
So that's Pohx's, as Lifting said. You can check it out. You guys should be familiar with it. He's been playing Blight. He's been happy with it. And then we're going to be going into some of the uniques that we wanted to bring up personally and just talk about in the Breach League. Hedgie, you had the first one?
Yeah, so mine is Skin of the Loyal. And this is probably one of my favorite uniques from this for like a long time. And I like it because it's sockets can't be modified. This means you can't use chromes on it. You get +1 level of socketed gems and then 100% increased global defense. So it kind of teases you that it can be anything or it can do anything, but it's kind of locked at the same time. And with the Blessing of Chayula, you can upgrade this to Skin of the Lords, simple robe. It's also a 6-link. I don't have the picture there, but you get a random keystone. And this is the stuff that really makes you think. And I like when items drop and you're just like, huh, what color combination could this work with? And then you're like, oh, what keystones would I want with this particular build? And then you get that excitement, right? It's like Las Vegas. You're rolling the dice. Yeah. Come on, good keystone. Or, you know, a certain keystone may brick it because it just doesn't synergize with the colors or the skills that you want to use. I love it. I think recently Ziggy, he got one and he blessed his. He got something with like 4 blue, 1 green, 1 red, which is very good for, you know, spellcasters. So he was aiming to get something that was leaning towards Ghost Reaver and some other ones, and he actually landed Ghost Reaver. So you should actually check out that video. It was awesome. But I think we need more uniques that are like this. They look really, really powerful, but they make you think, and it may be more valuable than you think, and especially when the keystones are thrown in.
And if you want to make it even more Las Vegas, then you can corrupt it and hope for a +1 to gems, right?
Yep.
Oh, can you double up on +1/+1?
Yeah, you can corrupt it for a +1. I think someone's already posted one on Reddit where there's a +2.
Damn.
Yeah. So
and this one actually,
Ballsparker are gonna love that.
I'm actually not a huge fan of this unique because it's too generic. Like I don't want to say a cheap 6. It's a 6-link. It has to be your colors, and then it has a random keystone. It's not a question of it being good or bad, but I just find it's a bit boring. I don't know.
I think it's interesting in the way that what it can roll by itself, unmodified, it's probably a little boring, yeah, but I think it has some interesting potential.
Yeah, and if you going back to what you're saying, if you do corrupt it, it makes the white socket that much more valuable because it increases its flexibility.
When
If you
it
get
says
phase aggro on this, like phase aggro without having to get the block and dodge penalty, that's the ticket.
yeah, that's definitely valuable. When it
Well, then you
says
would just use that other test.
when it says sockets cannot be modified, does that also go for if you try to Varici change it?
Yes, I would
Okay, so it
assume
doesn't follow the corruption rules.
I mean, I think that rule bypasses any other rule. Sockets cannot be modified. Well, I don't know.
Okay.
I don't know. Maybe you can white socket it. Maybe you can't. Maybe it'll bypass the white socket if you corrupt
Well,
it.
Varici is a modification, and Varici allows you to change the corrupted. That's the
Right.
cost. So I would just assume naturally this Varici can't change that. That'd be a bit too strong.
Yeah.
Like the one downside of this item, Varici solves it. What? So yeah, not good. Not.
I really like it. And the flavor text is we happily give our limbs a net woven to keep safe the bones of the lords. And then the upgraded, the lords are chosen so carefully, only they may grace his flesh.
It has nice art though. Like it has very nice art.
You think the art is good? I like
Yeah.
the one on the left, but the one on the right kind of reminds me of Chris's hideous t-shirt.
I'm colorblind, so maybe the colors are fucked. But
Okay, let's go to the next unique.
so Sins of Rebirth. Or sorry, no, Sins Rebirth. This is a Stibnite flask, so apparently they like making insanely powerful Stibnite flasks. And it gives you Unholy Might, which is 20%, or sorry, was it 20 or 30% of your physical damage as added to chaos? 30%. Excellent. It's there on the flask. Well done, us. Then removes, immunity to ignite during the flask effect, because why not? And removes burning on use. That's an insane amount of power. Before, the only really way you could get Unholy Might consistently was by using the Death's Hand Mace as like an offhand, and that made it quite powerful. Then you could have technically gotten it through the Vis Mortis on minions chest piece. But yeah, I
mean,
don't see any potential issues with poison double dipping on this fucker.
I mean, this flask solves an issue there is in the game currently, and that is that poison and chaos damage isn't that strong.
No.
So
Assassin might finally be viable.
Yeah.
I'm glad to tell you guys.
I think this may be the solution to it, but we'll see.
Oh,
I mean, I really like the revival of Unholy Might because the last time I used it and found it worthy of like a slot was the jewel from Beta. What was it? What's the jewel called that gives you Unholy Might on melee
it's
kill?
It's still in the game.
Yeah, it's 5%, but in Beta it was like 15% or something.
Yeah, you did a EK character with that, didn't you?
I did an EK. Oh no, I did it. It was an Ice Crasher actually. That used it. Okay. It was super strong because I think you had to get a melee kill in order to use it. But it did a significant amount of damage, and over time they nerfed that jewel, and I haven't really used it.
So good.
Yeah, I haven't really used that thing, and now this is like the revival of it. And I really like the Stibnite because it's 10 out of 30, so it's easy to fill, lasts 6 seconds with quality, and even longer if you have flash duration or a belt enchant or a belt mod, but pretty damn strong. The immunity to ignite during flask effect, that could be pretty handy, especially when you're fighting something like the Phoenix or I don't know, maybe if you're doing that map mod, monsters ignite on every hit. That could be definitely useful.
What I disliked about sorry.
I think they want people to realize how powerful a Stibnite flask is. So this is one way of going about it.
I'm wondering, would you use Witchfire Brew and Sins Rebirth just because they're both so fucking good?
One thing that's pretty crazy about Stibnites too is that they only consume 10 out of 30 charges. So you have it's so easy to maintain. You use it so many times during a fight. Yeah.
Well,
What I was going to say that I kind of disliked about Sin's Rebirth and a little bit actually the introduction of the Silver Flask is I remembered always trying to get Unholy Might onto a build and playing around with those, and same things with the Onslaught buff. There was this scattered ways that you could get it, and you were like, how do I make a build that I can take advantage of this? And now it's just like, fuck it, everybody gets it. So there isn't a thought process behind it.
You know, as the game goes on and evolves, and we get more and more OP flasks, there's actually a decision to be made, because you can only have 5 flasks on your bar. And before, when we had so few, the choices were so obvious, right? Everybody fucking had Taste of Hate. Anybody that could use it, you could use Roomies. They're just so universal. Now we had Dying Sun, but we're getting to the point where flasks are so good that the choices are getting tough, and maybe it'll continue to go down that road. Yeah, it's definitely.
I would be happy about that if flasks didn't have such high uptimes. Like if flasks were much more conceptually temporary buffs, then yeah, it would make sense to me. But currently, you can just keep them up too much.
Yeah.
But that has to deal with a lot of the balance stuff, like mob HP, damage scaling, things like that make flasks so strong, right? The ability to infinitely charge your flasks is something that definitely should get looked at. And if that problem is solved, then flasks could be a bit more balanced, and they don't have to be changed at all.
All right.
Yeah, it's not inherently the problem of the flask. It could be just some other secondary factors, which I agree with.
The next unique on the list is the United in Dream Cutlass. It's a one-handed sword, and it grants the level 15 Envy skill. So first of all, what's Envy? Envy is an aura that adds flat chaos damage to attacks and spells, so your minions can benefit from this. And that's great, because the weapon also gives you minion damage, some minion chaos resistance, which is actually not to be underestimated either, because chaos resistance can be kind of hard to get for your minions. I think is it 16% maybe there is in the skill tree or something like that near the witch. And then the sick thing about this, however, is that your minions poison on hit. And that is pretty crazy. And then on top of that, minions leech 5% of life against poisoned enemies. And just to give some perspective here, minions already leech fairly well by just picking up some of the nodes in the skill tree. And the total amount of leech for minions in the skill tree is 0.8% leech. You can get 5% here. And so the thing is, of course, you have to poison them, and that means you will have to use minions that deals physical damage or chaos damage to make this work. So you can do this with animated weapon, you can do it with SRS, you can do it with zombies. And what I think is the coolest thing about it, and I hope will lead to a change, is that people will maybe be more inclined to try and find some physical-based specters now. But the thing is, you could use the physical-based specters. We already have the ones that Undying Evangelist, I think they're called.
Yeah.
And, just have a great time with that.
How much flat chaos was the Envy? Did you have
it's
that in front of you?
58 to 81 to attacks and 52 to 69 to spells.
Yeah.
I really like this unique. It screams animate weapon. Like, holy fuck. I actually want to make an animate weapon character with this thing. It's insane.
Yeah.
It's
so much damage.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen Uber Elite. He made a poison animator without this thing, and add that on top of that. It's just like insane. But yeah, I think lifting is right. Zombies and animate weapon seem to be the clear-cut winner for dealing mass amounts of physical damage. And the key part is that they hit fast enough so that they're able to get that ailment up, that poison. So and then they'll immediately get the benefits. But
Yeah, this is
So it's
definitely
quite
something I'm
clear
interested in trying.
between United in Dream and Sin's Rebirth, poison's not strong enough. That's just
Yeah.
what we understand.
That's seems to be what they're trying to fix.
Which I think is, I'm glad they're addressing it. I'm glad that they're like, you know what? Okay, guys, we've gotten the complaints. We've realized something's wrong with the numbers. Here's some poison buffs.
I'm just waiting for some CI buffs. Like this, that'll make more sense.
Well, nice segue into the CI buffs. Well, I guess energy shield buffs, I should say.
Yeah.
So,
Talking presence here.
yes, we are.
oh yeah, presence of Chayula. Bring that up on the screen, and that's basically you take an original Eye of Chayula and you bless it with the blessing of Chayula, and it upgrades into a cracked out item. It's insane. It's just all around good shit, and it's 60 chaos rest to a low life build, in addition to having a little bit more ES, and you don't really care about the life pool because you reserve it off of percentage anyways. So it's such a clear cut, upgrade to a low life build. But I wanted to get your thoughts on its overall design. In my eyes, it's so powerful and so simple. It doesn't really require a thought, but I guess the fight is hard enough and it's end gamies that if you're at that point, then grats. Like. What do you guys think?
I think there's an issue with this item. I think in general a lot of the unique items they've put out are really cool and very interesting, but this item here is just power for the sake of power, pretty much. It seems to be solving some minor downsides that CI has or low life has, and then just like benefiting off it almost. And it just seems, this seems too powerful for me. It doesn't seem like a unique item. It just seems like an item that has power. Yeah, I don't know. What do you guys think? Oh, PT, what do you think?
I'm a little bit surprised on the Chaos Resist roll, because even without the Chaos Resist roll, this would have been a very, very discussed item. What I do like about it is when I see this, there's the obvious, low life, just it does everything for you. It is fantastic. But in terms of hybrid, I didn't actually run through the calculations, but wouldn't hybrid potentially be the highest effective health pool build now? Because if you have 5,000 life, which is not a high amount of life, that would convert to 1,000 base energy shield. Just on your energy, on your amulet.
Yeah.
So
run as
a hybrid build. Yeah. But I was like, there's a couple options, and would be interesting. But at the same point in time, it's, low life's kind of the king you would probably use it with, and it's a bit too straightforward. I miss uniques with downsides, because I dislike when a unique solves your problem. I like it when a unique is giving you something special or unique, and then it's giving you a problem. So you're like, do I want special property with this problem? Not like, oh man, my build has this problem. Put in unique, no downside, done.
I think I feel about this amulet the same way you felt about Dying Sun. This is just power for the sake of power.
I say Dying Sun's a bit better than this amulet, but fair enough.
I mean, so? What would have been like a really unique and cool property is, like, this is a challenge league item, and it's supposed to showcase like one of the hardest fights that they designed for the challenge league, like something that just automatically picks up splinters as you run over them. That would be cool. It would be like a huge quality of life, because man, I fucking hate clicking those individual splinters. And if something that I did like a feat, and I achieved it and accomplished it, and now I have the luxury and of just running over splinters and picking them up, that would be really, really cool. I would actually enjoy that a lot. And that's a unique thing, but I guess they'd have to program pickup radius and shit like that. But why
not just play Diablo 3?
Well, I mean, it'd only pick up splinters. Come on, and it would only pertain to the league, so I think it'd be okay. and to be safe, right? You don't have to worry about it being super broken.
Yeah, well, it's definitely interesting to have a unique like that that interacts more so with the league mechanics. They've done less of those uniques more recently. Like I do remember the ones that would interact with the shrine. I'm sure they changed that for more longevity purposes.
All
And
right,
then,
PT, you want to go over the
yeah,
next?
this shield has an interesting name, which I have no idea how to pronounce it. We're going to go with Lyco Sunday. That makes sense to me. Lyco Sunday.
It sounds like some bad TV commercial or something. Like a Sunday. Something, yeah.
Vegan shield. You get the vegan mod where you can't miss. It's level 20, or sorry, no, it's level 11
It's
requirement.
vegan,
So cast on crit. Oh, that's just fuck accuracy. Just while you don't want to deal with accuracy and you're gearing up, toss this shield on crit builds. It's a ton of itemization saved until you have the access to those really specific accuracy pieces you're looking for. It's a pretty absurd shield.
How have you guys thought about the 250 to cold damage to counterattacks? That's a fairly significant amount too. It's probably not going to make that much of a difference, but the damage by itself is pretty significant at level 11.
I think it's really good because of the way the breach is designed. You have a clusterfuck of mobs coming at 360 degrees, and the way I probably use this shield is with a Zerker. Use a Berserker because he has what's it called? Where you take a savage hit and you deal more damage. You leech for 100% of your attack damage for a short time, 3 seconds or something like that. One sec. It's called Cloaked in Savagery. Yeah, 50% increased damage, 25% increased attack speed, 100% attack leech, and then you can combine the synergies with the thorns or the counterattack damage, and you can now put Vengeance with Wed and justify it, right? Because you could use a Beano's dagger. That's something that with the left side of the tree, it's hard to get accuracy. You get precision and versatility, and I guess Eagle Eye. Those are your like 3 main ones, and then you don't get accuracy for shit, and you don't get a lot of dex nodes because naturally you're on the southern and west side of the tree. So counterattacks, socketing, putting more investment into those with like Wed, I think it's really cool. And being able to use crit weapons on the left side, like Beanos, claws, and not feel pressured into traveling all the way up to the dagger and claw nodes because it's so damn far. I think that's super cool. Well, on the same note, this can be used on a ranger or a shadow. Basically, you can use a Loathbane in this thing. All of a sudden you don't need a Vegan dagger anymore because it's a Vegan shield. Take your best weapon and ta-da. But
do you guys ever find yourself using counterattack skills in the game right now?
Yeah, while leveling, especially with a two-hander, I make an effort to put Vengeance in on like a single link.
Okay.
It does pretty good damage every now and then, but as far as like in-game stuff, no, not really. Yeah. But on a Berserker, I'd probably do it.
Same way, I usually just find like another cast 1 damage taken setup because putting spells with Cull with blind, if I have the free links, is a little bit more reliable.
Yeah, I do the same. I don't find it's worth the sockets to typically use them.
If you have Reckoning and Vengeance with Wed, that counterattack damage is going to be significant, especially on a Zerker where you're promoted. Like your whole idea is to take some hits and unleash like so much damage at a very fast rate and leech at a very good rate too.
I think unfortunately it's that as we get faster, counterattacks are just more and more out of touch.
Yeah.
All right.
Next unique on the list, and it is the Boots Apparats. Not Horn, that's the other one. Yeah. And I just need to pull up the screenshot here. Let me see. Where is it? I think I may have deleted it by accident.
Oh no!
Oh
What
no.
have we done? How dare
Alright.
you?
Well, what these boots do is that they give that skill called Aberrath's Fury. And have any of you guys tried this out yet? Do you know how specifically it works?
No, I don't know how the effect works. I couldn't
Okay.
find any posts on the wiki either. The
Yeah,
level
I
stuff.
couldn't either. I read someone saying that it's like an explosion
Yeah,
around your character.
as you walk, there's just a little small explosion at your base every step you
Yeah.
go.
One of the cool things is that you can use them at level 12 already, so they have some pretty awesome leveling potential. They also give 9% chance to ignite. I believe that is the number. It probably
6 to 12.
6 to 12. Okay.
Or sorry, 6 to 10. My bad. 6 to 10.
Okay. And then it also gives fire damage based off your strength. I think it's 1% fire damage per 20 strength. So it also has some potential with some Iron Will builds. Mm-hmm. And finally, it has the pretty awesome property of spreading ignites when you kill an ignited enemy. So even though you can use these boots from level 12, they actually seem to hold some potential even into the later parts of the game. What do you guys think of these boots? Let me see if I can find or pull up the screenshot.
I posted it in Skype.
Okay.
These boots, I think, are an extremely well-designed unique. They give you a little bit of fun alternate leveling as you're going. They're very powerful as you're going to level. And then it gives you creativity tools without just being like downright broken stats. So like this, in my idea, is like an absolutely fantastic unique. Like,
yeah.
Extremely well done.
Yeah, I mean,
okay,
I like an
screenshot is
alternative. I like an alternative to Wanderlust. Wanderlust are just been like the staple leveling unique. But you have to consider this is level 12, so are you going to go back to town and put these on? Probably. It'll last for a while. As far as like end game application, the thing that punishes the most is the 15% movement speed. And usually as a marauder caster, you're going to be pretty damn slow. So that's going to hurt. I mean, yeah, you can get some offensive benefits, but I feel like moving faster is more important than anything. Getting to your next spot so you can unleash whatever or proliferate whatever. So I guess you'd have to lean towards attack speed or in shield charge or something like that. But using this with a staff, definitely, I would not want to use that. Too slow.
Awesome design as well, or graphic design. I like that.
Yeah. I actually want to use these while leveling. I'm so sick of OnePlus.
Me too. Then again, do you wanna run 5% slower? Compared to
I wouldn't mind. Well, like look at all the benefits, man. You can use this fire trap and flame blast.
It would depend on how powerful Aberrath's Fury is. If that makes sense.
At low levels, it's quite powerful. Like you'll get pleasantly surprised. But at higher levels, it's just going to be more of a triggering device for you. That being said, related to that, there's been just a ton of uniques giving us these skills of random levels, and I'm just kind of like, give us the skills, for the love of God. Give us the
what
skills.
We're working with.
Yeah, they've been doing that a lot lately. Like we're just like, we see this new skill and we're like, what? Help?
I think it's very intriguing though, if that's the right word. It's interesting. I like that. It makes me curious to try out the uniques rather than just having some stats on a unique. I think it's really cool. Makes it feel like it's something we haven't seen before. Makes us explore new stuff.
Anything that can spice up the leveling meta is definitely welcomed. So moving on to our next unique, we have Essage. I don't even know how to say
Ashes.
Essage. Ashes. Damn, that's like a tongue twister. Vol Spirit Shield. It has 63 life, 259% ES, which probably will take it to around 280 with quality. We have 30 lightning res, 22 chaos resist, and then the most important mod, chaos damage does not bypass energy shield while not on low life or low mana. this is like one of the ones that really makes you think on how you want to build this. And there's been some debate on how you should build it, and some people say it's like a good interim weapon until you get shafts. Some people say you should go hybrid, or it's made for hybrid. I think it could go either way. I mean, it's a little middle of the road, and it definitely takes some planning on how you want to reserve this stuff, because you can't go on low life and low mana. And people bring up some good points is like you can't use an expensive skill, because then eventually you just go on low mana and your defense is shattered. So something like Elrion jewelry, triple Elrion jewelry can solve that, but you need to pick something very, very cheap. Or I think the proper way to use this is to go blood magic. That's probably my favorite way. The thing is with hybrid, I don't really see that this really fits, because I actually like how chaos damage will bypass energy shield as a hybrid character, because the problem I have with hybrids, you have like 3.5k life and like 5k ES. And it's not until you lose all your ES and some of your life that you can actually pot. But with chaos damage, like chaos degen damage, you can pop behind it. The only problem is it's hard to see because the ES globe covers the shit out of your life, So
Yeah.
sometimes you just don't even notice because you're like, oh, I haven't lost any ES, so I must be good. But yeah, the problem I have with hybrid is if you get such a massive ES pool, it takes so long until you can actually do something about it with a potion, like a health potion, to get your shit back. So I actually don't mind chaos damage bypassing it.
I think there's some potential in doing, not in the literal sense, but a low life attack based build where you just reserve what is it, 64% of your life for an aura, if you can make that work. And
Yeah, because you don't really care about the low life.
you don't need pain attunement.
Yeah, no pain attunement.
You could do that, and then of course focus on ES and have that extra free aura. I think there's some potential in that. And as you said, there is blood magic potential here as well, because when you're using blood magic, your count is being on full mana, right?
Full mana.
Yeah.
Well, your counted as no mana,
Yeah.
but
No mana, full
low
mana.
Right. And then we have
seems interesting.
We have the other property, reflect shock applied to you to all nearby enemies. Now, this is when you get shocked by an enemy or monster, you then spread the shock to nearby monsters. This is not when you apply shock, which there was some confusion. So whenever you get hit by, let's say, Arc, and it crits you, you will then shock nearby enemies. That's all that means. As far as like crazy synergies with that, I don't really see any. Not
it's
right.
The Malagaro's Restraint, which is the belt that
you're always shocked.
You're basically always shocked and be like, no.
Yeah. Not really sure what to achieve there, but maybe there's a unique down the road that they're going to make, with this. That'll be really cool.
Well, if the reflect shock happens before the immunity trigger, all right, and not confirmed, so this is just a maybe, you could have the belt on, run as shock immune, so you're not getting the damage benefit of the belt, but you will shock anything nearby because you're applying the shock to yourself, reflecting the shock, and then immuning it.
You could do that, yeah.
You could do that. And it may not work.
It may not be worth it.
A thought.
Yeah.
just a thought. And then, so speaking of lightning, Choir of the Storm is another unique amulet, and this one, like Esh's Visage, is the upgraded version. Now, Choir of the Storm is just an item that essentially is going to allow you to scale lightning resists into critical strike chance. Now, there's been always a back and forth. What it means by uncapped resist, that is essentially the stats in the bracket. So if I have, for the sake of a number, in Merciless difficulty, 100 resists, That, or 100 lightning resists, that's 100 uncapped resists, and that would be 100 global critical strike. Now, there's the lightning property. The unupgraded one doesn't have the lightning resist, but that's a lot of global crit, like a pretty absurd amount. No, and it allows you to turn lightning resist jewels to have essentially another critical strike roll. Those all resist stats on the passive tree become much more appealing, and it allows you to take a look at the stats in a little bit more dynamic way, which I find very interesting. Whenever I'm evaluating stats from a different perspective, I get a little bit hard. What do you guys think of the Fire of the Storms?
Go ahead, lifting.
I think, as PT says, the interesting part about this is that it makes you look and give your already existing stats, make them have additional properties. So your lightning resist is now not only lightning resistance, it's now also crit chains, or is it multi? I can't see it from here. But
critical strike chance.
Yeah. So I think that's the most interesting part about it. Besides that, it's it's just a regular unique that gives you more damage and a bit of other
A fuck ton of crit.
The lightning bolt is something that's definitely worth talking about.
Yeah.
So it acts like Herald of Thunder in that when it procs, it lays down like a little beacon that does an AoE, and it scales off of your cast speed. So if you have good cast speed, you'll get multiple hits. But the interval is set to 0.9 seconds, and it has a cooldown of 500 milliseconds. And people have reported that it does about 3,500 damage, and with like flasks and shit popped, it's around 7.5k per tick. That's a pretty good, a decent amount. It's like, what is this popular enough to really shift like the weight and value for ES items? Like, when I look at this, I'm like, oh, would a Volsparker use this? Would he forego the Chayula and use this so that he could get even more clear speed? But I'm like, well, he doesn't even need clear speed really, because he's Volspark Spark and / Volspark. And the other lightning skills, they have limited crit chance. You have Shock Nova. Shock Nova is a 6, and you have Arc that's 5. And then you have Storm Call. Storm Call is 6, I think, right?
Yes.
Yeah, it is 6. So I'm like, well, I guess it's okay. But it seems like it'd be the best with Spark.
It's probably not a unique that's supposed to be something everyone uses. It looks like it's for niche purposes, right? And for that, it probably does a good job. But so I'm not sure if it's fair if we compare it to the upgraded A of Chayula or a really good rare amulet. Because
I think it's major position if you're not trying it. Early game, it gives you a bunch of damage, a whole bunch of critical strike chance. Well, maybe not early game, but the start of end game, it gives you a whole bunch of efficient stats. As you get those stats and you no longer need the damage, the amulet can be switched out for something better, and that's probably the place it holds.
Yeah, potentially.
And then we have lifting. As always, he's in the perfect form, so we should discuss the new unique.
Yes, with the perfect form, this is my favorite new unique, guys. With this equipped, you'll now always have a perfect form of any exercise you do in the gym. It means the form police can get the fuck out of here. What this does is that it grants you free Arctic armor by basically reducing the cost of it by 100%. It also saves you point by granting you face acrobatics, and it gives you 1% evasion for each value of overcapped cold resist. It is 1%, right? I can't see it from here. I think it is.
Yes.
So what this chest aims to do is to grant those evasion-based characters, save them a bit of points by not having to pick up the dodge notes by face acrobatics, which is really useful because you are really point sucketed or point starved. playing those builds typically if you want to have enough life. It also tries to fix an issue with you having very low mitigation, actual incoming damage mitigation, when the hits go through with evasion. And while still buffing evasion. And it does a good job. I'm not sure if I would necessarily choose this over a lightning coil still. It also has a significant increase to dexterity for those types of builds, percentage increase, 6 to 10%. What do you think about this?
I really like it. It's definitely one of my favorites. Phase acrobatics is so interesting because you don't have to deal with the downside of acrobatics. You don't get the minus 50% armor, so you could go IR with this and convert it and get armor-based defense
and get a ton of block. No block penalty.
Yeah, it's definitely flexible, and it kind of the 5 to 10% increased dexterity. That's kind of cool if you want to run a siege ballista build. Definitely can use it. Having the extra Arctic or the free aura for or the free reservation for Arctic armor, that means you can run one aura plus 2 heralds easily, like one major aura and 2 heralds, and all you need is charisma, which is like right there anyways. So I think this is really, really good, and I definitely wouldn't mind using it.
Would you use it over a lightning coil though?
Yeah, I definitely would.
Okay.
I mean, I love Arctic armor. I feel it's one of the underrated defense. Now, if you're doing something where you're always moving, then that could be a different story. It still has value for something like Cyclone, but when you have map mods like monsters can't be slowed but below base movement speed, that's kind of shitty.
I could see using this over lightning coil if I was a acrobatics, like in that if I would have normally done an acrobatics lightning coil, I'd be like, you know what, getting phase acro, getting all my blocks if I'm also using a shield. But if I was using like a bow based character, probably not. So I like the unique. It's
cool.
If it didn't have the phase acro, I wouldn't like it. But the phase acro just is so efficient that you don't get the downsides of acrobatics.
Yeah. And like adding another herald or the ability to do it shouldn't go underrated, because if you want to go hatred, ash, and Herald of Thunder can curse on hit for you very easily with like lightning arrow or just any amount of lightning damage. So that could supply you power charges or frenzy charges, whatever you need. So definitely don't think that the Herald should go underrated.
So that's the uniques that we want to talk about. Now, we do actually have a highlight of the week, but we're running out of time. So we have Blizzard, who submitted his. We'll have that going on while we very quickly go over just your guys. What are your thoughts about the Quads dash tab, the Divinations dash tab, and the Essence tab, in like 2 minutes? Lifting? Well, actually, I'll ask Hedgie first so you can get the highlight of the week from Blizzard going.
Well, I have 126 dash tabs, and I don't really have a use for those. I mean, I guess it would be kind of nice to have the Essence one, but I don't really care for it that much. The Quad tab, man, I would love to condense my 126 into, a fourth the size, for sure. I was very surprised on how they announced it and how they released it, but the Divination cards dash tab I thought was really cool. I like flipping through my shit, being able to enjoy the art if I want to. It is very big though. It's unrealistically big, and it takes a long time to scroll through. So I think if they made it like the third of the size, the card smaller, it'd be much better. But yeah, personally, I'm not gonna buy the bundle until it goes on sale.
So too big for Hedgie on the Divinations. Lifting?
I'm using the Quad Stash tab as my dumping tab for when I'm doing Uber runs, just throwing everything in there and identifying it later. And I mean, it's not that much more beneficial than using 4 tabs. But I don't know. I like it, but it's not some. You kind of feel like you spent some money on something you didn't need to have. If you have stash tabs to begin with, of course. I really wish you could upgrade existing premium tabs to a quad tab, though, instead of having to buy a new one. As for the Essence tab, I think that one is really cool, has a lot of functionality. The divination card stash tab is unpractical. It's cool and all, but it's unpractical. It's much easier to just dump your divination cards into a regular stash tab, and then see when they light up blue, and you have a full stack. You can sort through that, I found out, but I think it's impractical.
Yeah, and one of the related feature to the divinations, I kind of wish it would save the one you stick, because all I care about in the divination stash tab is the full slot. So I just wish you could save whatever you sorted it by last.
Yes, I think so too.
Why isn't there a quad stash non-premium tab? I've got 90 stash tabs, and the quad stash tab, they've said we can't compress it, which is annoying and kind of bullshitty, but if it's a practicality thing, whatever.
Yeah.
But at the same point in time, I think I have like 10 premium stash tabs. I have all the specialty stash tabs, and I have mostly non, because I'm like, I don't need to name my shit. I know where they are. Mm-hmm. But why isn't there quad normal stash tabs? I'd buy those.
I think the biggest need for me to condense the amount, like the quantity of tabs I have into like quad tabs, is because the scrolling feature is so bad. Moving tabs left and right, and then scrolling up and down, and then getting your race rewards and PvP rewards dumped into your challenge league, like it's like all sandwiched. So it's like every other tab.
Yeah.
It drives me crazy, and it makes me want to have fewer tabs.
Yeah, if the sort, or if like the scroll menu to get to the tabs was better, I wouldn't care so much about the quad stash tabs. But like, scrolling down, there's like fucking 200 remove only, and I'm like, fucking stab me with a rake. Just goddamn.
I don't know why they don't just put like racer wars on a separate tab. Like nobody wants to see that shit integrated with their main tabs. Just have it on a different tab, please.
Or have like a subcategory, so it's like all your tabs, and then a show remove only button, and if that's not clicked, you don't show them.
Yes, something.
There's definitely some convenience in these stash tabs. I'm still, if there's one thing I would really like still, but maybe it's too impractical for them to design, is a map stash tab. That would be really, really sweet for me. Sorting through maps, upgrading them. Oh, it's a pain in the ass.
Whenever they release Razor Wars, it's like someone coming into your room and just messing all your shit up, throwing your bed around, like lifting up the mattress. You're like, why? This is necessary.
Yeah, sure.
All right, guys. Thank you guys for joining the Lioneye Watch podcast. Now, keep in mind, next week we're actually going to have Carl, the basically second in command for GGG. He'll be joining us, see how that conversation goes. For those who didn't manage to catch the start of the podcast, it'll be tossed up on Hegemony's YouTube channel. And for those on YouTube, if you want to catch us live on Sunday, there's a timer in the video description, as always, if we didn't fuck it up. Keep in mind that if you want to submit either Hideout of the Week, Build of the Week, or have something you want to do community showcase, just try to get a hold of myself. And then we're also trying to do the labs. So we got a 6-minute run brought to you by Norse TV. And if you want to have a recording beat that time, we'll have a little bit of a friendly competition, see how fast we can get that timer down before the end of Breach. There will be a PvP event this coming Saturday. It'll be a uniques only, and the rules will be posted. Once again, comment section of YouTube, get a hold of me for that kind of shit. So, as always, rest well, exiles. Enjoy your evening.
Such a roleplay, I mean. Such a roleplay.
God, fuck off. I'm trying here. I'm fucking trying. Piss off.